Welcome to the Armani Talks YouTube channel, the #1 YouTube channel for you to level up your communication skills, learn the art of public speaking, social skills, and personal branding to take your message to the world. For today's episode, we're going to be delving into emotional intelligence, and I'm going to be breaking down the science of empathy. Can you break down empathy into a science? We shall see. Empathy is one of the most misunderstood words in the world of communication skills. And unfortunately, it's typically misunderstood by people with good hearts. They misunderstand it to a point where they become doormats to other people. Let me just break this down from the get-go. Empathy is not about condoning. Empathy is about understanding. When you condone and you say, well, I'm just empathizing, what you're doing is you're treating yourself in a very negative light, and you're conditioning other people to treat you in a negative light. If you keep on accepting bad behavior over and over again, what's going to happen is other people are just simply conditioning themselves to behave that way. Oh, you know, Lucy, she empathizes. She'll put up with my bad behavior. This is not the right way to carry yourself, because whether you're aware of it or not, you're becoming a nice guy, a person who puts on an act in order to get approval. Instead, you want to learn the art of understanding. When you understand, you're able to see the dualities of life, the good sides and the bad sides, and you're able to detach yourself from it. Once you're able to detach yourself from it, that's when you're able to make a responsive decision rather than a reactive one. When you're reactive, you just become very impulsive. When you're responsive, you're more well thought out. Your breath is much slower and you're more in the present moment. That's the state that I want you to get to, and that's how I'm going to help you in today's video. Does empathy play a big role in the world of public speaking, for example? I mean, what role does it exactly apply in terms of practical usage? Well, think about speech anxiety. Speech anxiety, it's mainly there because of an untamed ego. Eventually, with practice, your ego will become tamed in the public speaking world, but at the baseline state, you have a lot of speech anxiety because you have an untamed ego. And with an untamed ego, you fall into two boats. This guy is the person who undervalues themselves and overvalues the audience. So this is the person who's always thinking, does the audience like me? If I get on my best behavior, will the audience like me or give me a pat on the back? And they become very needy. They become very fidgety. The other group is the exact opposite. They overvalue their importance. They're like, man, I don't got to prepare at all for my upcoming speech. And even when I get on stage, I'm going to let the audience know how smart I am, because it's all about me, me, me. So an untamed ego can make you fall into either one of these boats. And no bueno, that is not the kind of speaker that you want to be, especially with social skills as well. If you have a lack of empathy in the social skills world, you'll lose likability real quick. Some of the best leaders out there, they know how to empathize with other people. And if you can't empathize, then you're going to subtly build a lot of enemies. I want to walk you through the very basics. So let's start off in chapter 1. We all have that one moment in our life when our perception gets warped and it changes. It can happen suddenly through a rock bottom moment or through a certain kind of trauma, or it can happen over time. With this, it happens through conditioned learning. I used to have a friend and he was studying to be a doctor. This dude was always angry. The smallest things would make him very pissed off. And as he studied from the very beginning through the middle of his doctor journey, like from undergrad to grad school to residency, all of that stuff, I noticed something. I noticed that he was changing as a person. He went from being very angry to less angry to less angry to eventually becoming very, very empathetic. Once he was a practicing doctor, one day I hit him up and I was like, dude, I'm not gonna lie, but you have changed tremendously since I first met you when I was much younger. What happened? And he's like, not gonna lie, I used to be very, very angry because I lacked perspective. I placed way too much importance on myself. But once I started getting my formal education, something started to change. I started to understand how the human body works. And once I did become a practicing doctor, and as I was doing a lot of these surgeries, I was able to delve into the human body and see how it works firsthand. And after a few of these surgeries, I started to appreciate the intricacies of a human. There's so many different complex systems which are working with one another to make sure that the human is working well, is working effective. And at that point, it just became hard to be angry. I learned to empathize with my fellow peers. I thought this was a pretty dope story, and I was like, well, thanks for sharing that, man. You just gave me a lot of perspective. As a few weeks passed on by, I was on YouTube and this ad just pops on up, and it's talking about this astronaut who, when he left planet Earth and he was looking at planet Earth from space, and he saw that the planet he inhabited his entire life was so tiny. He couldn't believe it. But just zooming out like that allowed him to get so much more perspective to a point when he landed back on Earth. If people were to cut him off in traffic, he couldn't get as angry as quick. It's because his perspective has shifted to a much larger scale. Has that ever happened to you, Armani? Have you ever had that one moment when your perspective changed? Yes. And for me, it changed via the medium of electrical engineering. I got my undergrad in electrical engineering, and I served many years as an electrical engineer in different companies. Well, what the hell does electrical engineering have to do with empathy? Let me explain. At first, I was just like my doctor friend. I was a very angry guy. And as I started getting formal education in engineering, I started to understand how a lot of our different pieces of technology is connected. And I'm going to explain how it's connected shortly. But the more formal education that I got and the more real life practice that I got, I started to view technology in a completely different light. It's as though our higher power gave humans the ability to create technology so we could understand more about life. One day I go into my living room and there I am just looking all over the place. And despite everything looking so different, I saw unity. I saw a lamp, I saw a laptop, and I saw a TV and a fan, and I saw unity. How did you see unity among all of that, bro? Those all seem different. They seem different, but what's the source? What do you mean, what's the source? What's allowing all of those different things to be functioning? What? Electricity. Electricity is what is similar among a lamp, a TV, a fan, a laptop, etc. And if you don't believe me, try not paying your electricity bills for a few months and you'll notice how many things are connected. All right, bro, I'm starting to see, but what does electricity have to do with empathy? Well, what I started to notice was, all right, well, at first, with my human eyes, a lot of things seem disparate. A lot of things seem different. If I never had formal education in electrical engineering, I would have thought a lamp and a TV and a fan were completely different, no commonalities whatsoever. But after I got formal education in engineering, instead of seeing the differences, I was able to see the similarities. What else am I missing the similarities on? Nowadays, when we are trying to empathize with one another, we're focusing too much on the external sides. And when we're focusing too much on the external sides, like the circumstances, what happens is we're turning empathy into an intellectual process. We're like, all right, well, this person's dog died. I never had a dog, so can I empathize? X, Y, and Z. And we're turning this whole moment into a mathematical problem. But here's the thing. The logical world and the emotional intelligence world do not operate with the same rules. Completely different. So let me break it down one more time. You know how electricity is very similar to different technologies? Well, what connects us humans? Just think about it for a second. It's hard to see it at first, but when you take some time, you realize what's connecting a lot of humans is our breath. Our breath is our life force. Now, at first, you may be like, oh, well, it's just inhaling and exhaling. That's a very surface level viewpoint. You gotta dig a little bit deeper. It's much deeper than just inhaling and exhaling. Unfortunately, in my life, I've been to a lot of funerals of people that I was very close to. And a lot of these funerals were open casket. And here's one of the very bizarre things that I've noticed. As I go into these funerals and as I saw the dead body, the person didn't look dead, whatever that would mean. Instead, it just looked like the person was sleeping. It didn't look that different than just a regular person sleeping. And I just thought, dang, man, this person is dead. It's so sad. And that's when you start understanding that even though externally a dead person and a sleeping person look alike, there is a difference. Their life force, their breath is not there for one party. You have to realize that our entire world, we see symbols. So when you realize this, you start seeing past just the surface level act. When you see that the breath is more than just inhaling and exhaling, and you start labeling it in the right way, whether it's spirit, whether it's our internal God, our life force, whatever the case is, you start seeing that the person that you hate, the person that hates you, whatever the case is, at the core level, you guys have that one similarity. I just want to give you an example. A couple of years ago, I was struggling with speech anxiety, and I spent a lot of years working on my public speaking. I joined Toastmasters, I participated in different competitions, and I truly worked at it. Well, one of the competitions, I was able to compete against a lot of people, and eventually I was able to seal one of these. This right here means a lot to me. It's a trophy. Now, if you're a surface level thinker, you'll just be like, well, what kind of material is it? It's gold? Wait a minute. No, this shit's plastic, man. You have a strong feeling towards plastic? But that's not how I view it. I do not just view this for the material realm. I view it in the symbol, what it means to me. It represents hard work, dedication, and overcoming of fear. That's why you have to start seeing the symbol of your breath. You have to start seeing the symbol of a lot of these similarities that you have. Imagine if in a hypothetical world, your lamp and your TV are beefing with one another. They're fighting. The lamp's like to the TV, you're fat. And the TV's like to the lamp, well, you're skinny. And they're just fighting back and forth. And you have to play the mediator. What are you going to say? You're going to say, guys, I know it doesn't seem like it, but you guys are actually more similar than you think. The lamp is going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? That's a fat TV right there. And the TV is going to be like, man, this lamp doesn't look like it's ate in such a long time. How are we similar? And that's when you ask both of them, well, what do you think is keeping you guys alive right now? They'll be like, well, we never thought of it like that. And once you make those two parties think, eventually they'll realize that even on the material realm, they do look different. At the core level of it all, they are both being fueled by electricity. It's the same case in the world of emotional intelligence. In the logical world, when you think of a science, you think it's going to be very complex, it's going to be very hairy, there's going to be a lot of formulas. But if that's the case in the emotional intelligence world, that means you're on the wrong track. The science of empathy comes down to just seeing the unity despite a lot of the diversity. And you have to train yourself for this, because you'll see in the media, oftentimes, they're just focusing on the differences. The black man does this to white man, Chinese man does this to brown man, labels after labels. Labels are simply a shortcut for your brain, and it causes you to not think. And when you don't think, it's easier for you to become brainwashed by other people. But when you know how to think for yourself, things are different. You don't get fooled so easily. And one of the best ways not to get fooled is by having the right knowledge and truly understanding it. Understand the symbol of your breath and just realize that we all, at this point, no matter the skin color, the age, height, etc., we all share that one commonality as we're walking the face of this life. As the information age is rising, one thing that I've been noticing is that people are getting smarter and smarter and smarter to a point where consciousness is rising. And we're at that part in our world where we're having a consciousness transformation. If you are someone who has hate mentality or you're someone who's spreading hate, it's not cool. It's actually seen in a very disgusting way where people are like, oh wait, this person has hate mentality and they're shamed for it. So it's a good thing now that empathizing is actually becoming a more common act. When you start understanding the commonalities that we all share, it's much easier to understand human beings as a whole in different fields such as public speaking, social skills, or something as doing a YouTube channel. And one of the best ways to do this is by just understanding your own breath. A couple of videos ago, I dropped ninja breathing, which is a great way for you to understand how you work. When you slow down your breath, not only are you slowing down your breath, you're also taking control of your mind. And your mind influences your emotions just as much as your emotions influence your mind. Your breath is the gateway between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. Once you start understanding your own breath and understanding how it works, you start understanding how other people work at a much deeper level. But it doesn't need to stop with the breath. Whatever you can find that is similar among yourself and the other person rather than just what's different. I like to do the breath because it's one of the most simple things and it's just a way of living. But another hack is, say you're very mad at someone and you're about to explode at them. Instead of doing that from the get-go, just look into their eyes. And as you look into their eyes, you understand that their eyes are glossy. Their eyes humanizes them. And if you can look into someone's eyes before you're about to lash out, you'll find yourself not even lashing out. These are a lot of the cool little tricks that you can do in the world of emotional intelligence. That's why I always push public speaking, because I feel as though if you do public speaking, you learn emotional intelligence at scale. You start looking into other people's eyes. You start noticing the different breathing patterns that are going on, even when you are on center stage. You start becoming more mature because you are overcoming a fear. Empathy doesn't just mean condoning bad behavior among other people. Empathy starts with you empathizing with yourself. Understand how you work. That's where communication skills is brilliant. Language allows us to make sense of reality. So the more that you are practicing your communication skills, learning about yourself, the easier it's going to be to make sense of the world around you. But just like I was that electrical engineer who was able to see the similarities in technology, despite how different they looked, despite the different models, additions, etc., you can do the same thing in terms of empathy. See the similarity despite the different skin colors, height, gender, etc. And that's when your ego starts to become tamed. You have control over your ego. You're not the nice guy, but instead you see the bigger picture and you see where in that big picture you fit in. Just like that astronaut, he was able to see how Earth fit into the rest of the universe. Well, the universe that he was able to see, because at times I'm still curious how much the universe expands. But once he got that perspective and he internalized it, there was no going back. Get to that point. And when you get to that point, you realize that empathy is one of the superpowers in the modern day world. Focus, empathy, the ability to imagine, these are what your mind is capable of, not just pre-planning your failures. So learn to empathize with yourself, learn to empathize with others by seeing the unity among the diversity. Thank you for joining the Armani Talks YouTube channel, and I'll catch you on the next episode.